All right. Okay. Everybody's ready to start? Okay. So today we're going to start with the seventh chapter of counseling skills, and today we would be looking at responding skills, questioning skills, and personalization skills, right? So this is an addition to the previous chapter. These are another set of skills that as counselors, it's something that we need to refine and hone over time so that we'll be able to use them effectively in our counseling settings, right? So when you're looking at responding, so responding is a skill that the counselor uses to give them and show them that they've accurately understood what they were trying to say, right? So what do you do when you're responding to them? You try to reflect the meaning, the feelings, and the message of what they're trying to put across, right? So what the counselor does is what you say back is the content plus the feelings equals responding. Okay, so when the counselor reflects back what is the content and what is the feeling of what has been said, that becomes responding. So when we're looking at responding, what is the purpose? It is to clarify of what the counselee said has told you and to encourage them to speak a little more, right? And the purpose of responding is to allow the counselor to confirm whether what they heard from the counselee is right. Right? So basically, it means that once the counselee has told you certain things, right? They must have told you a story, and maybe through you listening to them, you've identified, okay, maybe they're happy about what happened. It seems like they've had a good day, and they've experienced joy. So what you will tell them back is, yes, I can see that these were the different things that you did yesterday and it made you really happy, and it's so nice to see that you have been happy, right? So you're giving back the content and the meaning and the feeling of what you've gotten from that. And the counselee, if you're right, will be like, yes, it was really nice, I also did many other things. But if you're wrong, they would be like, no, 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 I wasn't actually happy, I was really excited. Maybe they could have said that instead, right? So that is the purpose of responding. Now, for example, if I say that, if I come and tell you, like, I got stuck in traffic this morning, even though I left early and I wasn't sure whether I would reach here on time, and I was concerned, right? So as a counselor, what you would repeat in this case as an example could be, you must have been really frustrated when you were stuck in traffic because you were worried whether you would get here on time or not, right? And if I say that, the counselor will be like, yes, I was driving really fast, I was on the fast lane, I did all of those things, but don't know where the traffic jam came from at 8 in the morning, right? So all of these things would help them encourage to speak a little more. So what are the different kinds of responding skills when it comes, right? So one is reflective listening. Now this is something that we will have to do, right? Like you reflect back everything that they say, and reflecting comes in 4 different types. You have paraphrasing, reflecting feelings, reflective meaning, and summative feeling. So now we will go through all of these things in detail. So as I'm going through this, I would be giving a few examples as well and asking you to work with those examples with me, okay? So paraphrasing is, like I said earlier, it's a concise response, like a brief summary of what has happened. Suppose if I tell you, my brother and I have been fighting like cats and dogs every day. We're arguing about every small thing. He can't keep the garbage right. He's not even putting things. And he keeps telling me that I don't bring the clothes down from the terrace. We keep fighting every day about so many things. I said that in 6 sentences, right? Now, 5 to 6 sentences. Now, what the counselor would say is, it seems that you've been fighting a lot lately. 1 line summary of your counselee's 5 to 6 statements, right? So if I then say you've been fighting a lot lately, then the next thing you say is, yes, for every small thing, he'll not even do the dishes now. Now he's angry at me, he wouldn't talk. Now more things are coming out. Now them not talking is also a problem, right? So when you're paraphrasing, it helps them understand that, yes, you have understood what was happening, and you're encouraging them to speak a little more, right? So it's very concise. The key word here is concise when you're paraphrasing. Now, when we look at reflecting feelings, feelings basically you're going to have to mirror and try to understand what the counselee was saying, right? So before we get into that, let's just look at a few paraphrasing examples before we get into understanding a little bit more, and we'll club all of them together at the end, right? So now, for example, if your client tells you they come, I will be the client here, all of you are going to be counselors. So if I tell you, I just feel like no matter what I do, it's never enough, I'm exhausted, right? I just feel that no matter what I do, it's never enough and I'm exhausted, right? So as a counselor, you could say, the simplest thing you could say, it seems like you're feeling very exhausted throughout all of this, right? Or something that is more, like, I won't say refined, but something that is a more expanded version of that could be, it seems that you're overwhelmed by everything that has been happening with you because nothing is working out, right? Are you getting the difference? You're basically replying them back, but you're grasping the feeling of what they're saying also. I could be overwhelmed when I'm saying that, you could see it in my face, right? So that's how it could come. So now another example would be, this normally happens in friendships, right? They say that they said that they would be there for me and they would support me, but they left me. I was there all alone and I didn't know what to do. Now, what would you say? Speak, speak. This is when you'll speak and make your mistakes. So I've told you that they said that they would support me, but then when I was in trouble, they left me and I was all alone. I had to deal with it by myself. Use the microphone when you speak. What would you tell me? Quick answers. Come on, quick answers.
What was the reason why they left you alone?
What was the reason? Okay, now that's one. Now that is questioning. You're asking what is the reason. That's good. But right now we're trying to focus on paraphrasing. Right? I want you to repeat what I have said concisely and pick up the meaning and the feeling that is underlying my statement. So my statement was, they said that they would support me, but they left me all alone. I had to figure it out on my own. What feelings do you sense when I'm saying that? Sadness, hurt, and abandon. Now use sad, hurt, and abandon in a statement and say it back to me. What would you reply?
I'm feeling really sad and I felt abandoned.
Yes, that's correct. But as a counselor, how would you show me that you were able to grasp this and tell me? Okay, I'll just tell you how it would look like and we can pick this up from. Okay, so if you could sense that I was feeling hurt and abandoned, what you would reply back to me is, I can sense that you were hurt and you felt abandoned during the process because you were left alone. That's it, right? So it showed that you picked up on the emotion that I was hurt, I was sad and abandoned, and then I was left alone. Basically, you're just replying back, but you're just being concise. Okay, let's look at one more, but speak up, okay? This is the only way we would be able to figure out. Now, for example, if I say, I've been thinking about what is going to happen tomorrow and day after, and all I could think about is, what if everything goes wrong? That's my statement. I keep thinking about the future, about tomorrow and day after, and I keep thinking of what are the different things that can go wrong. What would you tell me? What can you sense? Worry. Very good. What else? Confusion. Okay. What else?
Fear of future.
Fear of the future. Very good. What else? Not being secure. All right. So we've gotten 4, right? What are the different things that we got? Worry, fear of the future, confusion, and anxious, not being secure. Now, with all of these things that you've picked up, what would your response be to me? You're on the right track. You've gotten the feelings, right? Now try to put them in a statement that what would you respond to me? Now you're the counselor. So you can sense that, okay, she's feeling worried, she's scared, she's not feeling so secure. What would you say back to me? Just paraphrase. Don't ask questions, don't say anything else. Just paraphrase that. Put those feelings in a statement. You can do it. I know you can.
I understand that I understand that you're worried and you have a fear of future.
Mhm. I understand that you are worried and it seems that you have a fear of the future. Right? That's very good. So are you understanding how it could look like? So the thing is, the only thing you'll have to say is it's a statement. What you've understood from what I was explaining to you about me and replied back, right? We'll do one more before we move on to the next one. So if somebody says, I thought that by now I would have my own company and I would be running my own office, but I feel like I'm lagging behind and I feel like I'm not moving forward. I'll repeat. I feel like by now I should have started my own company. I would have done so much, but I feel like I'm lagging behind and I'm not moving forward at all. What do you sense from that statement? Discouraged? Very good. What else? Not doing enough? Yes. Give me one more. Discouraged, not being enough, and the most basic thing, the most basic emotion, what do you think could be? Sadness, right? So the person is discouraged, sad, and feel like they're not doing enough. Put that in a statement and say it to me. Just put it in a sentence. Even if you just use the word discouraged or sad or not being enough, you don't have to use all three. You can pick just one. Say it back to me now. I can sense that you're sad and discouraged because you're not where you want to be. Understood? Okay, keep these things in mind. They'll all come during the drills, okay? Next is reflecting feelings. Now, when you're looking at reflecting feelings, it is very similar to what all of you said just now, right? You're trying to mirror back the emotions of the counselee of what you've picked, right? And I wouldn't go too much into this because I know that based on what you've told me just now, you've understood. But I'll just give you a few phrases that you can start with, right? If you're trying to reflect somebody's feelings, you can say, you sound, you feel, you look, you're feeling, right? You're sounding, all of these things, right? So a few of the phrases, I'll just repeat that again, that you can use is you feel, you sound, I sense, you're feeling, you're sounding, right? So the word that you're saying back also comes alongside of feelings, right? So next, when we're looking at reflecting meaning, you're basically going to paraphrase the content plus the meaning of what it could possibly mean, right? So when we're looking at reflecting meaning, for example, if I take the same statement that I mentioned just before, that I feel like I should have been moving forward, had my own company, and what else did I say? And not be where I am right now. You've picked up that I was discouraged and sad, that I'm not moving forward, right? What do you think could be the meaning behind that? Maybe it could mean that maybe for me, having a company at this age was something that could have made me feel like I've achieved my goal, right? So that statement could have if you add reflecting meaning with that, it could be, I can sense that you're feeling sad and discouraged because you're not where you are. Because possibly it could mean that if you've done it at this age, you would have achieved something big. Understood? Now you're adding the feeling plus what you're thinking is the meaning. And it's okay for you to say that, because why? After that, if it's right or wrong, they'll correct you. They'll be like, no, no, it's not that I would have achieved everything, but it was something that I told my parents that I would do at this age. Now you're getting clarity, right? But if it is something that, okay, it is actually their goal that at this age to set up a company, then they would say, yes, I actually wanted to set up a company by this age because then I could be one of the youngest, right? So we'll look at the last one before we get into the drills again. So the last one is a summative feeling, summative reflection, sorry. Basically, you're running through everything together. Maybe it's not all three. It could be just one or two, three. It could be mixed, right? The order in which it would come would be mixed, but you're basically giving them a very concise paraphrase of their feeling, their meaning, and what you've understood from all of it. So it'll not come immediately. It'll come maybe after a 10 to 20-minute conversation, then the summative feeling comes in, right? So let's look at a few drills again before we move into questioning skills. So the statement, okay, I'll just keep speaking. I'll still be the counselee. Try to pick up my feeling and emotion. I'll try my best to like put in emotions here and there, and you tell me what you feel, okay? Try to pull in feeling and try to add meanings to it as well, okay? Suppose I say, I never ask for help. People rely on me, but I normally don't rely on people. But people come and ask me for help all the time. What do you sense? Check my tone also. I did not say it in a sad tone. I was pretty neutral, right? So if I say, I never ask for help, people come and they ask me for help, but I don't really like asking for help. What do you sense? What are my feelings? Pride. Okay, what else?
Ego.
Ego. All right, what else? Attitude. Okay, so let's work with these three, right? We have pride, ego, attitude. What do you think could be the meaning behind me saying this? You can use the same feelings that you gave. Those were very good, actually.
So we might get the feeling that when a person says something like that, that the person is proud, and having having an attitude issue. But as a counselor, we can't judge, right?
Mm.
So we even when we are doing a reflective thing, we can't say, I sense you are being proud, or you are having a wrong attitude.
Right.
So we can't put it like that,
Mm.
right? So uh, am I right or am I wrong?
Okay. So that's a very good question, actually. So if you sense that you're not sure of what the person is feeling, right? From based on the words that we've come up, there's ego, attitude, and pride. The easiest way to work with these three is picking pride, because pride can be asked as a question, right? Attitude and ego, a little tricky to actually bring that up. So if you want to understand more, the next thing you would ask now could be, does it bring you a sense of pride that you're able to help somebody? But my tone becomes like a question. I'm not saying, oh, does it make you feel like you're good at what you do? That's why you're doing it. Like, you can sense the sarcasm, right? But if I ask them, does it bring you a sense of pride that you're able to help people? My tone itself shows you that, okay, she's genuinely asking a question, right? So that's how we can ask, which we would come to that area in questioning skills. But right now, we're just trying to figure out the how would you reflect. Now, if you've picked up these three different feelings of pride and ego, how would you reflect that back to me? Actually, this is really nice that you brought up pride and ego. How would you bring it back to me in a way that is on a very neutral space? Actually, I'll just give you the answer. Suppose if me having that pride shows that, okay, people can rely on me, but like in a good way, it's not something bad. I would say it must be really nice. It must be bringing in a lot of pride, knowing that you can be dependent and people can come and depend on you. If I say that in that tone, right? But if I say, oh, maybe you must be feeling really proud that people are depending on you on everything, now that becomes a little sarcastic with how I say as a counselor, right? So as a counselor, we need to remember that our tone also will affect, like how in the same example before when Vinay was asking me that question, I would genuinely wanted to understand whether this person was very prideful or was just proud of like, yes, people depend on me, I can help somebody, or people depend on me and I help them. The difference, right? So asking the right questions is important. So let's look at one more. This is something that's very common. I think most of us experience this. I come and I tell you, I'm the one who's always reaching out first. I have to message first, I have to call first. It's always me. What is the feeling? What are the different feelings you can pick, and what is the meaning? I'll repeat, I'm always reaching out first. I always have to message first, call first. And if I don't do it, nobody else does. What do you sense?
Um, I can sense that you're frustrated about you messaging first always and calling them first, and I think that you are doing that because you care for that person. Um, so that's how I would paraphrase and also give meaning to what they are doing.
Mm, right. So if we take that, it's, what did you say? Frustrated, right? Okay. So I can sense that you are frustrated, and it shows that you care, that you always reach out first, right? Correct. So basically, what you're trying to say is, I understand that with what you said, you're frustrated, but I also know that you care because they keep reaching out first all the time, right? So that is one way that we can pick up on these things to ask, right? But sometimes, if now this is a tricky statement also, because sometimes, what if they're the ones bothering people all the time? But then you will not know unless you explore further. So based on this statement, I'll be like, yes, I do care. I message them once every hour. Then you're like, oh no, that's a problem. So then you address that later on, right? But see, if you're asking the right statements, more questions will come in. But if somebody genuinely says, I just check up on them, I do care. I check up on them once in the morning and once at night just to see how they're doing, right? Then you know that, okay, this person is genuine. That person from their end may not be reciprocating the same way. Are we good? The ones online, are we okay? Can I just see a reaction, a response? All right, perfect. All right. Now let's move on to questioning skills. So, why do you think knowing questioning skills is important? Why do you think questions are important?
Because we can understand more what they are feeling and we can able to counsel them also.
We can understand more of what they're feeling and it'll give us a clarity on how we'll counsel them. I'm paraphrasing now, aren't I? Can you see? So technically, with all of the answers that you give me, I'm just paraphrasing, right? pick up on these skills if you just watch me also through the session, you will see that half of the things that I'm teaching you now, I'm technically applying them here, okay? So if you're just observing me, if you apply your observation skills on me, you'll be able to pick out many things. You will sense that if I'm talking about something, I feel like I'm just putting myself out there now. But if you see that I'm talking about something relaxed, you might just see my posture a little back. But if it's something that I'm teaching that's important, you'll see me coming front. Okay, just use these skills. I'll ask you later on. But yes, questioning skills are important. Why? Because like we saw in the previous exercise, if I'm asking you the right question, I'll get my answers. Right? But if I ask you the questions with a weird tone, if I'm being sarcastic, I will not get the answers that I need. So like you said, counseling sessions can help up opening questions, and the main reasons for asking questions is they assist to pinpoint an issue and to clarify information that would be ambiguous at first, right? And that's there on your first paragraph. So this is the purpose of why we ask questions: to pinpoint an issue, to clarify information, mainly for you, so that you know how to address it ahead. Now, remember when we were looking at the beginning of the class, one of the main things was empathy when we are asking questions. So be very empathetic when you're asking, because sometimes you might be asking the question from a very genuine perspective, right? But your tone might make it sound like, okay, this person is judging me, right? So be very empathetic when you're asking, and come from a place of curiosity. You're just trying to understand more and more. Like, what is the reason? Suppose somebody comes and tells you that, I've started drinking again. Suppose it's been 2 weeks, they haven't touched a drink and they started drinking again. And if you ask them, why did you drink again? Versus, oh, what happened? What made you drink again? Same question, just different approach. One will give you more insight. Maybe they would say, I just had a fight with a friend and then I got really angry. I didn't know what to do, didn't know who to talk to. That's why I took a drink. But if you ask them, why did you drink again? And they'll be like, no, it was just nothing. Maybe I just wanted to take, I'll not do it again. It'll just quickly cut them off, right? So learning how to be empathetic when we're addressing people, that's very important. The next thing about question is, do not interrogate. You're not the policeman here, right? When you're in court, when the police comes, they will just ask you questions left, right, center. They'll not care if you're feeling sad about the questions, nothing, right? So don't interrogate the person that you're questioning, right? So one of the main reasons for questioning is it aids in self-exploration also. Suppose if I ask you, what made you drink? What happened? Then they could have said, I had a fight with a friend and it did not go so well. Oh, what was the fight about? Maybe if they remember, they could have said, if they remember, they would be like, okay, maybe it was because of money, or maybe I was supposed to reach there on time, but I didn't reach. Then maybe they could have said, I think I could have actually gotten there on time. Now you're getting your answers, but it's also making them think of like, why was I angry? Why was I so angry that I took the drink, right? Now, if it's anger or like finances, now that could have been the issue there. Address that. Is that something that you would like to discuss about? Is finance a problem right now? Is everything okay? Right? This is how you would be getting more and more. So when we're looking into this, just before I forget, when we're looking at responding, right? One thing that we need to remember is in our response to them, what becomes a danger zone is if we are trying to solve their problem, or if you're withdrawing, or if we start evaluating them. Now, I will use the example from the previous class. So remember how when we were having that session, within the first two statements, the counselor was already addressing the solution. Oh, maybe I think you should take notes. I think that would work well, right? That is right, but that should come in later, right? When you're in this entire process of figuring out what to do, make sure that you're not solving the problem on their behalf. Your response at the beginning should not be on, okay, this is how you solve it. For some counselees, towards the end, they might actually be really clueless. So how you give them would be in the form of options. Maybe do you think taking notes would help, or taking a break when you're feeling sleepy, or drinking some water? You're giving them different options. They pick what is best for them, right? But we are not the ones solving. Another thing that we need to keep in mind is withdrawing. I'm so sorry, but I'll just use that example because that was a very proper session that happened. The first thing was when the counselor said the tone of, oh, that's a very common problem. Everybody goes through it. If that was the tone that I had mentioned, the counselor could have been like, okay, then I think it's a common issue. My problem is not that big. But for them, it's actually a big deal. Like falling asleep in class is a big deal, right? But if you say, oh, I think that issue is pretty common, but let's see how we can work through that. I'm saying the same thing. But then in one way, I'm showing in the second response that I understand that it's a big deal and let's try to fix it. But in the first response, I'm like, it's just sleeping in class. Just in my tone, right? So that's that. So when we're looking at the different kinds of questions, there are mainly two kinds of questions, right? In counseling, one are open-ended questions and close-ended questions. So normally these are things that we would say at the beginning of the session just to understand what they're doing, right? And there are a few examples in your textbooks as well. They normally begin with what, why, how, or could. Like, what brought you here today? Why do you think you had that argument with your friend? Or what do you think could be made better? These are very vague questions, right? Which gives the counselee to talk more and share more, right? If I've asked you, oh, why did you think you took that drink yesterday? I'm not giving you any options, nothing. I'm just allowing you to speak and speak and speak. Then you could have said, maybe it could have been that I woke up late, I was stressed, I got angry, many things would come out, right? But if I asked you in ways that, for the drinking thing, if I say, why did you have that drink yesterday? You know you weren't supposed to have that. Now I'm limiting his answer to telling me he will close off everything, this person, and now will try to give me the answer that will make me happy. But that's not going to work. I need them to tell me all the answers, right? So normally open-ended questions, they're just normally one statement that gives your counselee all the space in the world to give your answers, right? So they normally begin with what, why, how, could, right? So when you look at the next paragraph, it tells you a very detailed explanation of what different questions would give you certain answers. So if you say how, it'll normally give you feelings. If you're looking at what, you normally get facts. If you're looking at when, you get timing. When you're looking at where, you'll get an idea about the environment and the place. When you're looking at why, you'll get more information, right? So we would be doing this when we would be looking at it in the form of an exercise. I think that would be more helpful when we're looking at trying to understand what are these questions and how do they work. So, for example, an open-ended question could be, suppose if somebody was saying that they had gone to an amusement park on Saturday and they went with all of their friends. That was all they said, right? Your question to understand that could be, oh, what was that like for you? That's it, right? You're just asking them, what was it like? You went to the amusement park, you went with your friends. Then they could either say that, oh, I had a really good time, or they could say it was terrible. I did not like the roller coasters at all. It was so scary. Or they could say, I had a blast at the roller coaster. I was screaming my lungs out, right? Then you know that, okay, they were happy. They were doing many things, right? Or if somebody comes and tells you, yesterday in the evening when I came back home after work, I was having a conversation with my friend and it was really strange. So in order for you to understand better, you could ask them, how would you make sense of that? Why would you think of it like that, right? Then maybe they would say, maybe it was the tone, or maybe the topic that we discussed. It wasn't nice. And if that's the case, what did you talk about, right? So questions upon questions to ask them all of these things. Now, closed questions would look like, you're just asking for facts, right? You're trying to get facts out of them in order to be able to understand what is it like. Suppose if they were saying that I had a drink yesterday, right? And suppose if you know that While questioning, can we use the word please? Yes, but it also depends on the nature of how you use the word please. Um, for example, if you need a little bit more clarity, like could you just please explain that to me a little more? That works. Normally, yes, you can use the word please. Yeah. So when we're looking at closed questions, right? So yes, so the person was drinking, and if you know that this person normally, it's like a 50-50 chance whether they drink with friends or they drink by themselves. Now, what you need to, as a counselor, you want to know whether this person has gone back to his friends who drink all the time. That's why he drank, right? So a close-ended question would be, were you alone at that time? So you'll get a yes or a no, right? If it's a yes, then okay, you know that the friends weren't involved and he took it by himself. If he says no, then your next analysis would be, okay, did they force him to drink or did he voluntarily go with them, right? So when you're asking close-ended questions, you're basically trying to get facts, okay? And should we move into the activity? Okay, let's actually run through the entire chapter first to see what we should not do, and then we'll go into the activity, right? So when we're looking at the different kinds of problem techniques that come when we are questioning people. So Ivy and Ivy, now these are the people who lay the basis of foundation. They were the people at the beginning when counseling was just starting. Like these were the people who brought in many things in place. Now, a few things that we can make sure that we don't do is bombarding the client or grilling with so many questions, right? And when you're looking at this, like in your head, one of the main things that you'll be thinking about, okay, what should I ask next? What should I ask next? Oh, this I can also ask. Many things, right? And when you're grilling, normally, have you seen those interrogation scenes where the cops just come in and like they make you sit and they're asking you one after another, after another, after another? They don't give you space at all. That's called grilling. Now, that is something that we should not do. Otherwise, it'll be like an interrogation room. They could have gone to the cops instead of coming to us, right? So try not to do that because then it'll feel very overwhelming. Suppose you're coming and tell me, and one after the other, I'm not even giving you space to like breathe. I'm just pushing one question after another. You wouldn't like it, right? Now, next is asking them multiple questions at the same time. For some clients, they might be able to pick up, right? If you ask them, how are you? How have you been? Can you tell me where you're from? Most likely, you might remember 3. What did I even say? How are you? How have you been? Where you're from? I also don't remember the questions that I've asked right now. Will my counselee remember? Maybe not. But if you ask them one question at a time, okay, how are you? Then they'll say, I'm doing pretty well. Okay, that's great. Where are you from? Then you also remember the correct questions that you've asked and the answers. It would be a disaster if you don't remember the questions that you asked. And then you'll ask them, oh, what was I asking? That's not going to work, right? Now, the third thing is questions as statements. Now, when you use this to try to make them agree to what you're saying. Now, if they say that I failed in my exams, but you know for a fact that maybe they could have studied more, but you can't say that. So you try to tell them, do you think if you studied more, it would have been helpful? Now, that is you just putting an answer in the form of a question for them to say yes, to agree with you. How can somebody say no to that? Like, yeah, obviously, I need to study more to pass more, right? But now you're trying to put in your perspective in the form of a question. Now, there would be certain instances where you may have to do this towards the end, but it's never at the beginning, right? This could usually come in maybe in cases where you know that the person might harm themselves. Suppose if somebody, when they're going through a lot, the first thing that they do is like maybe they'll take something sharp and cut their arms, right? In cases like this, maybe the right thing would be for them to call somebody instead, like just talk, right? So in cases like that, it's all right to, and we'll look more into that when we go on to the further chapters, when we're looking at the chapters on suicide and things like that. But in cases like that, it would be okay to say, do you think talking to somebody would be better before you do that? Right? Because this is something that's pretty genuine, but not for something like for exams, or like, do you think you could have studied more? Like that's a little 50-50, may not work. So try to avoid it as much as possible, right? Now, next is questions and cultural differences. Now, when we're looking at this, we will have to understand that especially when we're talking to different people, even in a city, so many people will be coming from so many different cultures. Upbringing would be different, social conduct will be different, right? So it's important for us to try to understand where they come from and what would they do. For example, maybe something that they could tell you is that it gets cold in the winter, but then it's a habit, right? Like you put your shoes outside so that it doesn't dirty the house. And when you're walking in, like they're walking barefoot, so like they caught a cold because of that. So it wouldn't make sense for us to say just wear your shoes inside the house, right? Because for them in their culture, that doesn't work. You're not wearing outside shoes inside. So maybe if we ask them, okay, what can be done so that you don't feel the cold? They could say, okay, maybe I can wear socks or put just like a separate chappal just for me to use inside the house, right? So what we're trying to do is try not to offend their cultural practices and their differences because it's all going to be different, right? Make sense? Okay. And the last is the why question. Asking too many whys would irritate the person. Why did you do that? Why did you have to do that? Why do you think all of these things? Why would you do that? And all of these questions, right? When you keep asking why all the time, the person will just be like, you know what? It's okay. I'll go figure it out on my own, right? So these are a few things that we can keep in mind when we're looking at different questioning skills that we can ask. So one of the main reasons why we have all of these skills is to try to get to where we want to be, right? Because throughout all of these skills that we have, one is we try to make sure that they're comfortable, we're getting the response that we need, and we're getting facts, we understand more about them. So all of these different things are there, right? So in the last page, when you look at personalization skills, so these are the skills, all of your different skills should ultimately boil down to this point, that the questions that you ask, the things that you say, all of the statements that you might put out will help the counselee understand more about themselves, right? So when you're going to go through all of that, it's basically a summary of what were the different things that has happened throughout your conversation, right? Through your questions, when you were asking them, it helped them understand better of their own problem, their own situation, right? So one of the main goals of counseling skills is to come to this. You're helping them understand much more about themselves, the problem, why it happened, how it happened, where it happened, so that they can reach the fourth point, which is personalizing goals for them, right? So if you've understood the problem, like when you're looking at math questions, right? When you're looking at this person has 5 apples, this person has 6 apples, somebody brings in bananas and watermelons, and then you're just like, what is the problem here? Like you don't know. Then they tell you to find X, and you're like, what's X? So when you're trying to figure that out, you will have to root through the problem, right? Okay, maybe they said that this person lost this many apples to this person, and then they got bananas instead. Okay, no math problem will actually bring so many fruits, but then like you have to probe, right? Try to identify. When you're looking at geometry and they put all those different angles, they're like, find X, and they'll give you 2 angles here. If it's those weird hypotenuse sums, and then you're just like full math, right? But when you look at geometry, you go through so much, like you go in a circle to come to your answer, right? Basically, you're doing the same, but then you're asking them different questions about themselves. Our circle just looks different. You're trying to look at why it happened, where it happened, who was involved, what did you do, how did it make you feel, all of these different things. And then you come to the answer like, oh, this was what happened, this was what you felt, this was what you think could have done better, so what do you want to do now? That's the gist, right? I hope I didn't overcomplicate it by bringing in geometry, but I hope you understood what I meant. Yes? Okay. So technically that brings us to the end of the 7th chapter. But what we're going to do now is we'll just quickly run through a few exercise drills just to understand questioning a little better, right? So I will just keep bringing up scenarios. Like I will talk about things and you ask me the questions. Does that sound okay? Okay. Somebody just give me an example of a scenario. What would you want me to talk about? Should we go with the amusement park thing? Okay. All right. I'll just stop sharing my screen. You'll not need that anymore. Okay. So we'll go with the amusement park example. I'll start with the most basic things. Anybody in class just pick up the microphone and we will continue. All right. So I come to you. Actually, somebody be the counselor and like just introduce me and things like that. Somebody pick up. Take. Do it. Dinesh, right? You can pick in. So I've come. I've sat down. You can begin. So what would be the first thing that you'll ask me when I come inside? Okay, so I've come inside the counseling room. I've sat down. What would be the first question that you'll ask me to understand more about why did I come here and what is the reason?
How are you, ma'am?
All right, so you'll ask me how am I? Okay, so we do have somebody in class who would be asking more, but we'll get into that. Thank you so much, Sriraj. You can actually use Sriraj's question. How are you, right? So begin. You can talk. Just talk into the microphone.
What is your name
My name is Gabriella.
and why are you come here?
So there were a few things that I wanted to talk about, and I thought that this could be the space that I can talk to, I think. It's okay, think. Okay, what did I say? I said that there are a few things that I wanted to talk about, right? So your next question could be,
About what? What are the few things?
okay, so I want to talk about my relationship with my friends mostly, and maybe look into a few physical habits that I want to start doing so that I can be healthy.
What happened in your relationship with your friends?
So, with my friends, what happened was last Saturday, we all went to an amusement park, and there were 10 of us, and we all went there together. And we all had a lot of fun. But when we were standing in line for one of the rides, I did not like what one of them did to me, and it's bothering me a bit. You're on the right track. Now, think about the different things that I've said about my friends, right? Now, try to pick what do you think is important from there to ask me. Did you sense any emotion when I was talking? What was the emotion?
Frustrated and sadness.
Okay. So now try to say that in a sentence to me. You're right. I was frustrated and sad because something happened with my friends, right? Now put that in a statement.
What happened and how it bothered you?
Okay. So you can say that you sound frustrated and sad, and that seemed like it bothered you. What happened? Right? Okay. We will have to stop here for today because we're running out of time. But what I would like for all of us to do as a class is all of these skills, please brief up on them, because from the next class onwards, we would have a lot of these drills, right? Because there is a lot that comes in when you're talking to people, and that is how we learn. We learn through everybody else's questions, everybody's doubts, and through demonstration. So this is something that we'll be doing in the next class. If you have any doubts, please read your notes before you come in for the next class, because then you would know how to practice certain things, right? But thank you so much for joining into the class today. And before we close, we'll just quickly pray and then we'll end. All right? Father God, we just thank you for giving us this day for us to come together as a class, Lord. And we just pray that as we continue to journey with all of the different things that we've learned, we just pray that you be with us, let your wisdom and your knowledge continue to flow through us, God. And we continue to commit ourselves in the future classes into your hands, Lord. And we thank you and we praise you. And we pray this prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. Thank you so much, class, for joining in today.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.